Paige Connell. Welcome to the Take podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It takes every urge for me not to say Paige Turner. I'm sure you got that all the time.
I do. Yeah, somebody just mentioned me on a different podcast. I didn't know they mentioned me, and everybody's like, they mentioned you, but they called you Paige Turner.
It's such a standard last name anyway, but also I love the play on words. But again, thank you so much for being here. For those listening, people probably know you from your page. It's a Paige Turner, or she's a Paige Turner, where you've really built such an incredible community. You keep it real about motherhood and marriage and the mental load and the invisible load and all the things that people are probably thinking, but not necessarily saying out loud. So we appreciate that you say it out loud. And we also are really grateful that you took some time to be with us here today on the Untake.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me.
So we're going to get into all the things. We just want to have like the girliest chit chat with you. What's on top of your minds and heart today? June is a wild month, right? Like there's just constant things with kids and graduations and things unfolding and ending. You have 4 children, right?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So what's on top of your mind and heart right now?
Well, I have 4 children, 3 of which have birthdays in May and June.
Holy moly.
No.
and my husband has a birthday in May. So I just wrapped up 2 birthdays last week, and we have 2 birthdays this weekend. They are 2 days apart. So we've got that and dance recitals and baseball playoffs. And so I'm just like, I was just counting down the days on my calendar. I was like, when am I free of the schedule? Because our summers, we try really hard to keep like chill. So I'm just counting down the days over here.
And when is that for you? Like, let's get to the finish line.
Not till end of June. So our kids, because we had snow days, we already go to school pretty late in New England, but because of snow days, I think they're not getting out to like June 24th or something like that.
That's old school, I feel like. I feel like that's when we used to get out of school. And now I think one of my friends, her son's graduating from pre-K today. And I'm like,
wild.
What is happening?
We're from Jersey, by the way. So we're south of you, but still on the East Coast. You're in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, and we've always been this way. We always get out late June. We don't go back until after Labor Day. You know, we're always still in school, which is fine because the weather was still cold and rainy until like last week. So totally fine.
Exactly. Oh my, all those
You're
birthdays.
living my dream. I used to live in Boston, and if it were up to me, I love where I live, and I would still be there.
Yeah, I hear you.
But what a marathon, too, with all the birthdays and then the Mother's Day and the Father's Day. Oh my, Paige. So the fact that you even took some time to like have an hour with us, like even more gratitude moment to you. So thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so much. So our first part of our unicorn space that we always like to carve out some time to talk about is a segment called 2 Truths, No Lies, which is really a lot of adjacent content to what you talk about, holding 2 truths at once. 2 things can be true. You know, you've heard it before. But we love for people to just make all of that really visible, usually attached to some type of story or anecdote that you want to share. So we'd love to hear what you brought to our 2 Truths, No Lies table today.
Yeah, you know, I think I could give you a million, even just like today. But I think like one that people maybe who follow me are probably familiar with is this, you know, idea. I've talked a lot about how after having 4 kids, when my youngest was maybe like 3 months old, I reached a breaking point. I was like, this is unfair. I am exhausted, and I need to change our relationship dynamic. This has to feel more fair when it comes to the mental load and domestic labor and all of those things. And since then, we've built a lot of systems and tools and like operational efficiencies within our home to make our lives run more smoothly. And it's so funny because whenever I say that, people will say, it sounds like you run your life like a business. Like marriage is not a business, parenting is not a business. And I think there's 2 truths there, which is that you can run your home like a business and still have really loving, caring, kind, happy relationships, and they are not mutually exclusive, right? Like having a calendar that you live and die by creates space for you to actually spend intentional time with your kids. And so I think oftentimes we look at things in really like binaries, and I really believe that like you can do the unromantic things because they give you space for the romance in your life, in a sense, right? So when I was burnt out and exhausted, I didn't even care about date night. I didn't want to go on date night. It sounded like more work to me. Now that I'm not burnt out and exhausted and we have a really like scheduled life with a lot of systems and structure, date night's there. And like we don't think about it, and it actually gets to be fun. And so I think when I think about 2 truths, it's really that, which is like, it can always be 2 things at the same time, and they're not mutually exclusive, and one does not necessarily mean the other isn't present.
I love that so much. We spoke to Eve Rodsky, which
you're
speaking her language, so you obviously know who she is.
Yeah, I love
her. We spoke to her a few weeks ago, and honestly, like that in and of itself could be an entire episode. And the way in which, when we were having that conversation, and the way in which Michelle and I have every single conversation, is like, why is there this pull to constantly feel like we need to balance it all and be the ones that have to balance it all, but also be responsible for the emotional and like magical component of it all? It's not, there is no way that you can hold every card, to use that language. And with what you're saying is like, why is it that we feel like the minute that you get down to the, you know, like task-orientedness of it all, you're trying to like almost like micromanage your life a little bit? But quite frankly, with 4 kids and, you know, jobs and all the things that we're balancing, it's like, how do you expect to get to a place of finding balance without that? If it was an organization, you couldn't just fly by the seat of your pants. Nothing would run.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's one of those things where, you know, oftentimes in relationships, my daughter actually said it to me this morning. I was a little outside of routine, and she goes, wow, you could be fun. And I said, oh, thanks, girl. Because I have been traveling for work, and Dad has been doing the mornings for the last 4 days. And I do mornings exclusively during the week. He is at work before my kids wake up. And I was like, girl, I can be fun. The difference is Dad only has to do this 3 days out of like the year, and I have to do this every day. But it's funny because I always tell people, I'm like, I'm really structured. I'm very type A. I put a lot of systems in place with my husband so that way things run efficiently. And we're not saying like, do you have the cleats? No, do you have the cleats? Right? Like we just try to eliminate those questions and like just take real ownership so that way we can move more smoothly through our lives. But I always tell people like, I create that structure in my life so that I can be a more fun parent and say yes to more things and actually live in the moment when I'm there, right? Mm-hmm. If I know that my car is always fully stocked with extra clothes, a potty in case my daughter needs it, wipes, sanitizer, like all of the things, then if my kids say, hey, can we stop at the playground after school? I can just say yes. And last week, my daughter actually had an accident on the playground, and all my other kids were like, are we going to have to leave? And I was like, no, I have extra clothes in the car. I have like all the things. She's fine. Like we'll change her and I'll bring her back. And I think that's the thing. Oftentimes people will accuse women of like overthinking, over planning, over organizing. And it's like, I'm doing all of that because I've learned the hard way that if you have a kid who has an accident at the playground and you've only been there for 5 minutes, you have to go home if you don't have everything you need. And all of your other kids are crying and screaming the whole way home. And now you have to, you know, help everyone else like manage their emotions. And it's just a whole thing, right? And so in order for me to be like a quote unquote fun, spontaneous yes mom, I actually need that structure in my life to be able to do that. And so, yeah, I think, you know, everybody always jokes like, oh, my husband's go with the flow because I am the flow, right?
I like that.
I think that's where that comes from. But in my life, at least, it's both my husband and I are the flow. We are both go with the flow and we create the flow together. But for a lot of women, that's not the case. They're the one kind of like doing everything, and everybody's like, why is she no fun? And it's like, well, because she's doing it all by herself.
And if there is no flow, what happens?
Right. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Yeah. But I think some people live in that life where they're like, we'll figure it out, and like power to you if you can function that way. I think, but ultimately what I find with that, especially if like a partner is the one doing that, is like, who cares if the diaper bag's stocked, right? It's like, well, it actually does matter, right? There's certain things that do matter and certain things that don't. But to your point, it's like, yeah, if you don't have diapers and you're at the playground, like you have to leave. Like,
right.
There's no other solution to that problem.
I think one great point that you made is like, I've learned the hard way, right? So for anyone that's listening that's pregnant with their first or has one child or is going from 1 to 2 kids right now, like they might not feel a need to be that planned in that moment or that anticipating people's needs. It might be leaning into like, hey, listen, like we live and we learn. We'll go with the flow. To your point, we'll go with a little bit more of like, we'll go with a flow. We'll figure it out. But you, as having 4 children, like you've learned that there are certain things that you need in place to support you and your family and your life ultimately, and your ability to cope in those moments and be the mom that you want to show up as will be set up for success by doing those things.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, I always tell people, I'm like, I did learn the hard way. I failed a million different times. Like as a parent, you're always going to figure out sometimes the hard way, like what you could have done differently, where you're like, oh, like if only I always tell people, I'm like, I always pack extra clothes for my kids. And now I pack extra clothes for myself because I learned the hard way that sometimes their blowout ends up all over you and you need new clothes. And until it happened to me, I didn't think about it. Right. And so I think, certain things will happen. You adapt, you adjust, you just figure it out. But you learn lessons every single day in parenting about what you can do differently or better. So nobody comes in perfect knowing what to do. You just kind of adapt as you go.
Yeah, we always say like you don't have the playbook for it until you have it. And then when you're building it, still then like evolution, just by virtue of everybody else developing and evolving around you. So it has to be aligned with the systems as a practice too.
Yeah, totally.
It's what in our language.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I worked at a startup, they'd be like, "We're building the plane while we're flying it," and I was like, "Well, that feels unsafe." But
I say that all the time. Yeah,
I don't want to be on that plane. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any? I could imagine that someone's listening right now, and again, you're talking to two people who are very structured, like-minded. Will definitely flow, like in certain moments, maybe a little more spontaneous, but then again, you learn and then you go back to your ways. Do you have any other takeaway systems or like your top most transformative system to try if you have children or within your marriage?
I mean, there's so much nuance, right? In every relationship and like how you guys operate. I think one of the things that I really rely on early on was kind of this idea around fair play. I always am a big advocate for any advice I give to someone about how I do things. I always tell them like, take what works for you, leave what doesn't, right? Like if something that I do works for your family, fantastic. You don't have to do everything that I do. Your life is different than my life. Your kids are different than my kids, right? Like we're all different. And I feel the same way about systems and tools, right? I love fair play. I love Eve's work. I started off my journey in creating equity in my partnership by doing a version of fair play, but there were parts of it that just did not work for my life. And I was like, that's not going to work for me. But I'm going to take the things that do. And one of the things she does is that deck of cards. That did not work for my brain. I turned it into a spreadsheet. Also, she does not want you to like share tasks. That didn't work for our home. Like we share tasks, right? So like I took Eve's foundation and I kind of built off of it for like what worked in my life. And that is really important. I think that's something that a lot of people don't do when they have kids is they don't like write every single thing down that's happening and then talk about who's going to own it. And I don't even just mean like who's going to own the laundry or who's going to cook dinner. I mean things like who's volunteering at field day, who's buying the teacher presents, who is taking them to their well visits and the dentist. And if they get sick, who's taking the sick time, right? Like we often fall into these default patterns because we don't have conversations. So if there's actually one thing I can tell people, it's like, it's not a system or a tool. It's flexing the muscle of having conversations before something happens. So you have a plan in place. I think oftentimes it's like, oh shoot, our daughter has the flu. She's not going to school probably for 4 days. And then we make this assumption, right? I've always been the flexible work from home parent. There was always just an assumption like I would step in. And it wasn't even just my husband assuming, it was also me assuming like I'll just step in, right? Like it was just an assumption that I should do that. Whereas one point my husband came to me and he's like, I have sick time, right? I can take days. And I'm like, yeah, I know you do. He's like, but you never even ask me to, you just automatically like assume the responsibility of it we don't even have a conversation about it. And so I always tell people to have more conversations than you think you need about the things you don't think you have to talk about. Yeah. Talk about the dishwasher, talk about the trash, talk about sick days, talk about all those things, because when you don't talk about them, you leave yourself in a position of falling into like default roles. And that tends to be where like resentment bubbles up, and where burnout comes from is because we just assume responsibilities without actually having a conversation about what feels sustainable for our family.
Making the invisible visible, quite literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can I ask, so I'm a very visual person, and I think context is everything. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, can you paint a picture of what your, like, a typical week looks like in terms of what, not necessarily what you do for work, but like what your like working style is? Is your husband traveling? Is he commuting? Like, does he work from home as well? Like, what does your week look like? Because I think that helps people to contextualize how to cherry pick what works for them.
Yeah. So I became a mom 6 months prior to 2020. So like I dove headfirst into like whatever that was, right? And so I used to work in an office. I got to work from home like 1 day a week. My kids were in daycare. My husband works full-time out of the house. He's what's a lineman. So he works in like a truck on wires, right? He cannot do that from home. He has a blue collar job. And so he leaves the house at like 6:30 every single morning. His job is also very demanding in the sense that there's a lot of weather related overtime and mandatory work where he does not have an option. So he will call me at like 2 p.m. and say, I will not be home tonight. I'll see you at 4 a.m. And I'm like, okay, cool. And that can last for a week, right? And so like his job is 7 to 3 and is also not 7 to 3, right? Mm-hmm. It's our life has always really revolved around his work in a sense that like his hours are very inflexible and he does not have the ability to say no sometimes. Like that's not an option within his job. So I always was the default parent just by logistics. I worked in an office and then when COVID happened, I became full-time remote. And I worked at a company that I'd been at for almost 10 years. And so I had a lot of seniority. I had a lot of freedom, flexibility, autonomy, which was amazing. And so I could be the person to take a kid to a doctor's appointment or work from home with a sick kid or, my daughter does speech therapy 3 days a week. Like I could take her to speech therapy, bring my laptop, work from the lobby, all of those things. What ended up happening in that situation was I became incredibly burnt out because my flexibility kind of translated into me just taking on more and more and more and more and more. And my days were so disjointed where I would like drop kids off, work for an hour, pick kid up, work from the lobby, drive kid back, work for an hour, make lunches, work for an hour. And like my whole day was like that. And then the kids would go to bed and I would work on the couch till like 11 o'clock at night. So I was always doing kid stuff or home stuff and working. And I remember I used to say to my husband, you have 8 protected hours of work. You get 8 hours where nobody bothers you. You don't have to do anything else. You are just at work. And like that is your time at work. And when you're done with work, you're done. I was like, my entire day feels like stretched out over 15, 14 hours. And it's just straight working kids and like not a moment to breathe in between and no real like clear line between them either. That is still true today in a sense. I have gotten a lot better about trying to protect my time in the sense of my work. But I am still the at-home flexible job parent. I am now self-employed. I'm a full-time content creator, speaker, writer. I am my own boss, which is also a blessing and a curse because it's like, okay, a kid is sick. I don't need to take PTO because I am the boss. There's no, like, I can just do my job with her here. But I still end up doing a lot of that juggling where it's like, I am the one stepping in for all of those things, which is why I'm counting down the days till the end of school. But, I count down the moments until, I have that space for myself to actually dedicate time and energy to the work that I do.
The set shifting that you were doing and are doing, it's absolutely fatiguing and exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nervous system overload. It really is. Like think about your nervous system in both scenarios, but particularly what you described prior to becoming your own boss, like the accountability and the need. Everyone needs you at all times. Period. Your family, your employer, your teams, whomever it might be. And then you're having to consistently navigate the glass and the rubber balls of what's going to drop.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I used to say to my husband, I was like, I think what you don't understand or like he couldn't reconcile, right? Was because like he's very hands-on, very involved. The second he's home from work, he dives right in with us. I was like, but the thing is like, I open my eyes, you're not here. So I'm by myself. I get 4 kids ready off to school. The second they get on the bus, I dive right into work. I don't have 10 minutes to decompress. I don't have a commute. I don't have a coffee in peace. Like I have to get on because their school doesn't even start till 9 and I have to work. I'm like, work starts at 9. And so I'm like, I just don't have even those moments of transition built in, like his lunch break at work, there's no kids there. There's no laundry. I'm like, you don't have that kind of like infiltrating your life at all times. And I think the thing about kids too, it's like every time I pick my daughter up for speech therapy, some days she wants to go, some days she doesn't. So I'm like also managing her emotions and like navigating that. So that can be really obviously dysregulating and pulls you out of like where you were. It's like everything was good. Now she's crying at drop off and I have to do that again for the second time today. And, it's just emotionally exhausting and mentally exhausting. And which is one of the reasons why I think it's really important for women to find protected time in their life, to have space, which we do intentionally in the evenings for me. But just by nature of our life, there's some things that we can't change at the moment when it comes to what our careers look like.
Right. And what phase and stage we're in right now, zoomed in. But I like that, like zooming out, we call it our self-TLC time. And you have to remain so protective over that. What is that time? I know you said at night, but what does that actually look like? Let's define that.
Yeah. So for me, I always used to say, I was like, the second I sign off from work, it was like 5:30, he'd be walking in the door from daycare with all the kids. And I'd be like, all right, let's go back into it, right? Like, all right, we're back. What I ended up starting giving myself permission to do. My husband never told me not to do it. I just like didn't do it because I had this like mom guilt where it's like, okay, they're home. I should do dinner and bath and be at the baseball practice and all these things. I started leaving 2-3 nights a week. Like I didn't do dinner. I didn't do tub. I didn't do any. I just was like, you know what? I do morning solo. He could do some bedtime solo. I'm going to go to a yoga class. I'm going to go to dinner with my friend. I'm going to go walk around Marshall's for 2 hours by myself. I don't care what I'm doing. I'm just not going to be here. Yeah, I'm just not going to be at home, right? I'm going to take that time for myself. So we started building that in, and it was blocked on the calendar where it was like I think it was like at the time, like Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday or something. It was blocked on the calendar. Like I was not going to be home. He wasn't going to count on me to be home. I will say that it has evolved as our kids have gotten older because now I don't know who created the schedule, but like baseball goes to like 8:30 at night and like the evenings have been taken from us once again. But now we create weekend space like for him and for me. And so, we're constantly, I always tell people this, it's always evolving. Like you can't make a plan and then stick to it for years. And sometimes you can't even stick to it for months because when you have kids and different jobs and I travel a lot more for work now, we've had to adapt what that looks like and where we build that time in. And so now I build in a walk with friends like 2 or 3 days a week right after drop off. So I'll like build in a quick like walk with my friends, 30 minutes to an hour if I can. And then I have the rest of the day to like work, do kid stuff. And I usually do those on days where I don't have speech therapy, write something. So yeah, I mean, I think it looks different now than it used to. I always tell people be very, very intentional about making sure that time is protected so that it's on the calendar. You can't get booked over. None of those things can come into, unless somebody's sick or something like that. But that is your protected time to do whatever it is you want to do with that time. And so for us, that's what that looks like. It's just really having very clear boundaries around what that looks like.
I love that. And it's such a great point about the evolution of it all. I always use I go off of a lot of how the way things physically feel for me. And I'll Michelle and I are talking 24/7 via voice note, text, everything. And I'll constantly be like, like my brain's breaking on this one top thing. Like mornings aren't feeling good. Like there's something wrong with the system. And like sometimes you just need to sit in that for a hot second to collect the data of why. Because I think we're so quick to like be like, it's not working. Today sucked. And like, we're going to blame. We're going to just let it spiral. We're going to tell ourselves it's not like, whatever. But like sometimes you have to kind of sit in like the broken system for a little to figure out what is breaking it. And then come out the other side of like, okay, we know now why that system wasn't working. And the other side could be the following week. We're not like talking a long period of time, but similarly, my husband and he's been feeling like he needs a little bit more like heads down time, whether it's to do personal admin work or even like catch up with his friends on the weekends. Yeah. And we both balance this like deep need of needing time to feel on top of that stuff and also wanting to spend time as a family. Like both of those are equally important for us. So we have to hold each other accountable to find that time on the weekends, like honestly for the other person. So it's like, I'll recognize that like, hey, you had mentioned that you really wanted to like I got the kids this Saturday morning. You need to take that time. Do whatever you're going to do with it, but like leave with I'm going to take care of the kids and holding each other accountable for that versus just like being in our own silos and like kind of knowing what we need, but then maybe letting the guilt get involved is like such a big part of the partnership of it all.
I think the guilt part that you mentioned really resonates too in the sense that I remember it was never that my husband said I couldn't leave during dinner time, but it was this thing where I felt this like feeling that like, am I a bad mom if I miss 3 dinners a week or if I miss 3 bedtimes a week? Like that, like that's such a special time. You're reading books and you're snuggling and all these things. It's also a nightmare, right? Bedtime can be a nightmare. I had to remove that. I ask myself this question, like my husband has never been able to do weekday mornings ever. He's just with his job. He in the last 7 years that we've been parents, he's never done it other than when I'm traveling. And I'm like, and my kids know nothing else. They don't hold it against him. They never say, where is daddy? Why didn't daddy make me breakfast? Why didn't daddy get me dressed? Why doesn't daddy drop me off at school? They never say that. And I'm like, because that's just what they're used to. And they don't feel like they're missing out on anything. And he doesn't feel any guilt for not being there. But I felt this immense guilt if I would miss a bedtime. I would feel badly for him because it's a lot of work, badly for them because like I wasn't there to snuggle them and like scratch their back, whatever it is. And I had to start. I always tell people, I'm like, I like talk to myself. Like I'll get in the car and I'll feel guilty. And then I start being like, Paige, why do you feel guilty? And like in my brain, and I'll be like, he doesn't feel guilty or like this, whatever. And I'll have this conversation in my brain and I like walk myself off the edge and say like, I don't think you actually feel guilty right now. I think you think you're supposed to feel guilty, but you know that this time matters. And now that I've been doing it for so long, the other day, my daughter was like, where are you going? And I was like, oh, I'm going to dinner with so-and-so. And she goes, okay, have fun. I said, okay, thank you. I love you. I'll see you. And in the morning, she's like, how was dinner? Like, it was good. Thank you. Like, it's just, I even got home last night at like 9:30 from a work trip. And I woke up this morning and my daughter was yelling for the bathroom, like, somebody wipe me. And I was like, of course. Welcome back to motherhood. It's like 6 a.m. Welcome back to motherhood. And I walked in and she was like, Mom, you're home. And I was like, I'm home. And it was just like, that was it. She didn't say, why did you leave me? None of that. And it's like, I think we just have to like remind ourselves that I think we put way too much pressure on ourselves for like how much time we have to be there. It's less about the time and it's more about what you're doing with that time.
Right. Exactly. And you're modeling too.
Yeah,
no, sorry. You're
no, that's
modeling.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Of course it was. Right. Like you want, and it's hard when you're in it, but if you pull yourself out of the fishbowl and look at it from the outside looking in, you're modeling for your children when they're your age or even a couple years from now, right? You want them to have this autonomy and they deserve to have the time to go have a girls' dinner or go for a boys' weekend or whatever it might be. And it's hard. I struggle, Paige, with sometimes I just want to do it. I'm like, I want to be here. And I love Dr. Becky's reframe on guilt. And is it guilt you're feeling? Yeah. If it's out of alignment with your values, right, then it's going to lead you in a different direction. And is it guilt you're feeling? And you alluded to that before. Like maybe it's something else that I'm feeling. But then a vulnerable moment, like I feel this more than I think people usually talk about it. Like I'm going on a girls' trip tomorrow and I can't wait. We're going to Mystic, by the way. So I'll be a little closer to where you are.
Yeah, fun.
But it's like I am the eligible family member who is home most of the week, working mom, balancing from home, etc. But then there are times where I'm like, I want to be the one to do X, Y, and Z. So like, what comes up for you or how do you balance that want?
Yeah, but I think that's where those conversations I was talking about kind of come into effect. Like my husband the other day was like, I'll go to baseball, so you don't have to. And I was like, no, I actually want to go to baseball. I want to go watch him. Like, I feel like I haven't seen him play enough this season. I want to go watch. And I remember watching it and he had like a great catch and I was so excited. I was like, I'm so glad I'm here. Like, this is what I wanted to be here for this. And I think sometimes it's about just having those conversations about like the want versus need versus, whatever it is. Having those conversations with your partner, with yourself, and like being comfortable changing decision every single, sometimes I would have a dinner planned or like maybe I was going to go to a yoga class. I was like, you know what? I actually just want to I'll do bedtime with the kids. I'd rather do that today. I think you can have that flexibility with yourself, right? Like it's okay to make those decisions. But I do also think that, I tell my kids when we're having conversations with them, when I'm saying I'm going to see my friends and if they ask why, because they're like 4, why? And I'm like, well, who did you play with yesterday? And they'll say, oh, so-and-so. And I was like, great. And you had a play date? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, I'm just having a play date. Like you get to have play dates. Mommy gets to have play dates. Like I'm trying to teach them like, Mom, Dad, you guys, we all deserve time, right? I can't spend my life planning your lives with no space for my own life. And I think that is oftentimes what happens to moms in particular, which is we spend our lives making sure our kids have hobbies and friendships and like a full life that they can enjoy. And then we take everything off our plate. We say, actually, I don't have time for tennis lessons anymore. I don't have time to see my friends. I don't have time for that hobby. And we take everything that we prioritize for them out of our lives. And then we ask ourselves, like, why am I so burnt out? It's like, well, I have no space for joy or creativity or friendship. And those are the things that make life rich. And so I think it's almost, I sometimes tell myself, I'm like, it's almost hypocritical of me to like give them this full schedule and then not do it for myself, like not give myself that same time.
It's like learn as I say rather than what I do, right? Like modeling is the especially, I mean, for all of our children, I particularly think about it too, like with my daughter. Also, my son's only 7 months old. He doesn't know what's going on. But like I'm as a female, I truly feel so passionate about like even in the hardest moments where I might find it really challenging to do any of the things that you're talking about, right? Like I might be feeling guilt or I might be feeling exhaustion. Like I'll pull myself out of that by literally thinking like, what am I modeling for her? And then like picturing what advice would I be giving her in this moment? What would I want for her? And you could apply the same to a son, of course. But just, in society as like what we are kind of, put up against as females. And it's just like there. And if we're not actively making a choice to both model and teach these things in our households and with our kids, we're not setting them up for success. I want to ask a question about, and it's going to bring us a little bit back into the conversation where we were. But if I had friends who were living in a set shifting lifestyle, like you had mentioned before, maybe working from home full time and balancing all the things, what advice, particularly if you could give yourself right now back to that version where you're not your own boss anymore, and how would you have maybe done it differently if you didn't eventually make this transition into being your own boss and making a little bit more calling of the shots?
Yeah, I think you have to take a little bit of a pressure off yourself, and also constantly be evaluating what works and what doesn't, right? I might have had to say, to my husband, like, I'm not making the lunches on my lunch break anymore. Or I don't know, right? Like, I don't know exactly what I would have said. I think the thing is, like, I always encourage people to look at your life and say, what's working, what's not. If something's not working, is it because I'm burnt out? I have too much on my plate? Does my partner have space for this? Do we have the ability to outsource this? Do we have the ability to stop doing this? I think I would have had more conversations like that with myself. I think I was very much in a place of like, I can do it. Yeah. I can do it. I can do it. I can take it on. I can do it. Daughter needs speech therapy 3 days a week. I can do it. Like, I can do that. I'll figure that out. You guys want to do dance at 4 p.m.? Sure. I'll bring my laptop. Like, I can do it. Like, it just was very much like I was a yes mom to my kids and the way that I want to be, but I was also compromising my own well-being and time and space and my career in a little bit. Like, I always say, like, I wish there's something very different about being a parent to older kids than younger kids that I did not anticipate coming. I used to have what felt like very protected work hours because I had daycare. And then when my kids got to elementary school, that went away, right? It's half days, no school days, early releases, late starts, get home at 3 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock, right? Like, my days, it felt like my days disappeared the second my son went to kindergarten. I was like, oh my God, everything I built my life around has just changed completely. And I had to build in, I didn't do this until the second year my son was in public school, but like, I had to build in after school care. And I had to build in care for the days off. And I had to find a program that would do the half days. I had to invest in childcare. And I was luckily in a position where I could invest in more childcare. It's incredibly expensive, but I had to do it. Like, in order to do my job, I was like, I need that. Like, I need this childcare. But I didn't see it coming when my son went to kindergarten. I was like, oh, it won't be that bad. It's like a handful of half days. And I was like, no, it's not. It's way more than that. And so I think really it's about like assessing your life like as fully as you possibly can and deciding what you are going to do and how you are going to do it and what support you need in order to make that happen.
I really appreciate that perspective. I think one part that's really hard about this, we're so blessed to be able to have remote jobs or have flexibility and be raising children at this time where things look so different. And like the core millennial experience, like we knew a time before, right? In the working life and before we had kids and whatnot. But I think it's really, really hard to be balancing. Like, I have flexibility, but that doesn't mean I constantly need to flex. And I consistently find myself all day, every day, this mantra from 2 years ago of working time is for working hours because I'm home, the laundry or the this or that can pull you away. And I've found that like usually my burnout is directly related to how many things I am trying to do in service of my family and my home during the hours when I am supposed to be working. And it's a privilege and a gift to be able to activate that and like choose to do those things and have the decision to do it versus commuting 2 hours to the city 5 days a week like I would have if the pandemic never happened. But it's not sustainable. And I have a lot of friends that are still working full time right now and are just like exactly what you just painted. I can do it. Yep, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. But at what cost, right? And it's taking and leaving what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And thank you again for calling that out. What works for me isn't going to work for Michelle, and what works for Michelle isn't going to work for Paige. But like having the dialogue around, just want a pulse check. Like, are we all doing this? And like, how are we setting boundaries around this? Because we're sacrificing our own careers, our own well-being, our own mental health as a result of it.
Totally. Yeah. And I think you put this unnecessary expectation on yourself. Like once you start doing laundry on your lunch break, now you feel like you have to do laundry on your lunch break every single day. And so then it becomes an expectation, not from your family necessarily, but like that you place on yourself too. And so I found that I had to, if I was going to do laundry during the week, I had to figure out a system for that. And so for me, like I came up with a laundry system that works for our family where basically the laundry is done before 9 a.m. And I'm like, which like sounds crazy to people, but I'm like, I do one load a day and it's typically done before 9 a.m. Like that's just what happens. But that allowed my brain to like take that out, right? Like, oh, the laundry is done. It is already out of my brain. Now I can work for the day. You just have to figure out what works for your family, what makes sense for you and your brain and your workplace and the kind of work that, everybody does different work too. Like I do a lot of creative work now and like you need deep space to like think and to like do that. And I remember saying to my husband, I'm like, I have no space to have a thought. So that's a problem. Like I need to be able to have more than 1 hour, to actually like go deep on something. Yeah. And I don't have that space. And so, yeah, it came down to like adjusting what our lives looked like to create space for the things that I knew I needed to be successful.
Oh, that's such a good point, Paige. It's so funny. I have a 5-year-old son who's going to kindergarten next year. But yesterday he like caught me zoning. Like I was downstairs in the basement and he's starting to talk to me and I was like in such a deep thought. And he's like, Mom, like, where are you? Like you're zoning. I'm like, hold on, I got to finish my thought. Like,
yeah, let me think.
Right? I got to stay here for a second.
Hold on, I'm going to lose it. And it's just before I became a mom and I'm a teacher, a special educator, like I know how hard it is to finish a thought and not be able to have that role. But when you're in the context of your own home, balancing everything that you are, just finishing one thought at 5:30 p.m. is no joke. And you don't have space for it. It's just something that I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah. And so much comes at us as parents, like the emails, the texts, the app notifications, just it's relentless. And so I think also creating space for that a little bit too, where it's like, okay, I'm not going to look at my personal inbox until this time, or I only look at it at this time and I handle everything I need to in that way, whatever it might be, right? Whatever works for you. Like I know just this morning, I got a well visit confirmation I had to fill out the paperwork for, right? Like I had a camp email, I had a last day of school. I'm like, God, I got 5 emails in 5 minutes and it's like that can just throw you off course. You're like, oh, let me just handle that now. When in reality, you don't need to handle it right then and there. Protect your space, protect your time, visit it when you're available for it. And I had to get really comfortable with that. Like I'm a very big doer. I like to get things done and get it off my plate and take it out of my inbox. And I've had an email sitting in my inbox for like 4 days and it's giving me a little bit of anxiety, but I'm like, you know what? It doesn't need a response right now. And I will get to it.
Yeah.
I'll get to that.
Culture. Fight the urgency.
Talk to me about your morning routine. Okay, because you just said before 9 a.m. you like, so I want to know a couple of things. First of all, do you wake up before your kids wake up? And the answer could be it's different every day. Yeah. But like, what's your morning routine? I want to.
Okay. So I do and I don't wake up before my kids. It just depends on when they wake up. So like today my 4-year-old was in my bed. She like walked in and she's like, oh, you're home. And then she just came into the bed and she brought all her jewelry with her and she was showing it to me. I was like, good morning. It's 6:30 in the morning. So some mornings that's what happens. But like last week they were all sleeping till like 8. I was like, what's going on? But I try to wake up like 20 or 30 minutes before them. Not a lot before them, but I try to wake up before them. And we have rules in our house, like systems again, where they're allowed to be awake. Like, hey, you're awake up at 6:30. Totally cool. Stay in your bedroom until your little light changes colors and the birds start chirping on your sound machine. You stay in your room. You can read a book. You can color. They all have like art, like stuff they can do, appropriate things for a bedroom, like stuff in their bedroom. They have their dolls. And like, stay in your room. Like I caught my son the other day. I thought he was still sleeping. I went in there like 8:15. I was like, you have to wake up. And he was just reading a book. And I was like, dude, wait, I thought you were. I'm like, wake up. I'm like, I love to see you reading. You need to get dressed. We're going to be late for the bus. But so I try to wake up like 20 minutes before them. I will, shower, get ready, whatever. I do try to get dressed and ready before they're awake. And when I say dressed and ready, it's nothing crazy. It's like, let's just get some clothes on and brush our hair, and maybe put on some blush. Who knows? But like I put clothes on. I try to go downstairs before they are out of their rooms. So I give myself like 20 minutes downstairs. I pour my coffee. I drink some water. I pack their lunch boxes. So their lunches are always made the day prior, but I will like physically pack the lunch boxes and the snacks morning of. I put all of those in their backpacks. We fill water bottles the night before. My husband does that, so I don't do anything. So I just put their water bottles where they need to go. I will make breakfast before they come downstairs. So when they come downstairs, ideally breakfast just is like on their plates. And when I say I make breakfast, today was just Cheerios. It was a cereal situation. It was nothing crazy. But I just like have the fruit. I have the milk. I have this Cheerios out so they can either self-serve or they can, start eating when they get downstairs. Their vitamins are on their plate. Like everything is ready to go. So depending on how they filter downstairs, they can start eating and just like go about their morning. I don't eat breakfast while they're home. I'm a stander at the counter. I will stand at the counter. I will move about. I will drink my coffee and my water. But that is not my time for breakfast. I'm like, this is too crazy for me. I will eat later. I'm pretty strict about like teaching them how to, clean up after themselves. Like when they're done, I help them learn how to like put it in the dishwasher. And we have a routine, which is the second you're done eating breakfast, you clean up your spot, depending on your age. You put your water bottle in your backpack, you get your shoes on, and you get ready to go. Even if we're not leaving for 15, 20 minutes, you are physically ready to walk out the door. Like that's the goal. And then, sorry, my phone started ringing.
No, mine just did it before. I don't know if you heard it. My husband was calling me.
I didn't even hear.
The only one that gets through do not disturb.
No, but now, hold on 1 second. I know you can edit this.
Yeah, you're fine.
What happened was I pressed delete and then it started playing a podcast in my ears. And I was like,
wait, this happens to me all the time. It's the same version of Adele for some reason that pops through my, it's
so distracting.
Very overstimulating.
Sorry, that like if you saw my eyes, I was like, what is happening? I have my do not disturb on my computer, but it didn't work on my phone apparently.
No, you're good.
Sorry about that. But so yeah, so the goal is that they are ready to go, because what used to happen is I have 2 kids who have ADHD. If they didn't physically have their shoes on their feet when it was time to leave, that would take like an extra 15 minutes, and they would decide that was also the moment they had to go find a piece of paper. Whatever. I was like, I need you to be physically ready to get in the car. I believe that mornings for me are not a time where I teach my kids too much independence. They are a time where I need to rush out the door and get everybody where they need to be on time. And so like I put the backpacks in the car. I said I packed their lunches. I put them in their backpacks. Like I want to make my morning as frictionless as possible. We have assigned seating at our table. I'm like, you have an assigned seat. We're not fighting over seats. Like we try to make it frictionless because we are already cutting it really close every morning, getting everybody. We have multiple drop-offs. Like we have 4 kids. It's a lot. And so, like it's down to a science where I know if we are not physically in the car at 8:36, we will be late for the bus. Like you butts in seats at 8:36. If we are not in there, like, so I know at like 8:32, we have to be getting in the car. I'm like, everybody's going where they're going. It is down to a science. And then I do my drop-offs. I do a bus drop-off. We all drive to the bus stop because it's at the top of our neighborhood. And then I follow the bus out of the neighborhood to daycare. I drop off at daycare. I come home. And that is when I hopefully eat some breakfast if time allows. Oh, I forgot to say, when I come downstairs in the morning, that's when I do laundry.
I was going to ask, when does the laundry go in?
So I was visualizing while they were eating breakfast because you're like, I'm standing. I'm like, she's probably changing the laundry over at some point during breakfast time.
Yes. So I bring it downstairs when I come downstairs at like 6:30 or whatever, and I throw the first load in. I only do 1 kid a day. And we also have a bucket on the top of the laundry that's like for stains or anything that just needs to be washed that day. So that will go in with whoever's clothes are there. I throw that in. It's usually done by the time I'm loading the kids up into the car. I switch it to the dryer. By the time I get back from drop off, it is done. And I quickly fold it right when I get home from daycare. And so then it's done. And I put it away too. I don't leave it folded. I will go put it away.
We've been talking a lot about this.
Yeah. And then I put makeup on, and then I eat a breakfast, and then I start work. And that's usually what I'm doing. It depends on the day. Like I said, sometimes I'll go for a walk after drop off. It depends. But that is typically my morning routine if everything goes according to plan.
Literally live 20 lives before 9 a.m.
Truly. Now tell me, you said your oldest is 7.
No, my oldest is going to be 9.
Oh, he's going to be 9. Okay.
Yeah.
So then how old is your youngest?
4.
Again, context. 4. Okay. Your youngest is 4. Okay.
Yeah, so we have 9, 8, 5.5, and 4.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much for bringing us on that journey. I love it. It's like when I see these get ready with me's on Instagram and stuff, I have like two modes. I have the mode of people who are so not in the phase of life I'm in anymore, like late 20s. And I just watch and I'm like, oh, honey, I love that for you so much. I used to be that person too. And then there's the people that are living a life closer to mine. And it's just so validating. But I want to really double click on the fact that how many things that you mentioned that because I'm a parent, I understand that you got there because of a frictioned time. You said like, we're avoiding friction, like the assigned seats. I can imagine that came after a time of like people fighting over seats. Okay, so we're going to have assigned seats now. And I think it's so, especially when you're going through a hard time, maybe you're, postpartum or whatever it might be, you look at people, or you could be listening to an episode like this and be like, oh my God, she just knows everything she has to do every morning. And like, she's just so organized and she's so this and she's so that. We get to those places through growth and through evolution. And at one point in time, there was, I'm sure, a time where you were drowning in laundry and you're like, I don't know how to stay on top of this. And now it's an automation for you, and how inspiring that is for anyone that's listening and having friction at any point of the day or their entire system right now.
Yeah, you learn as you go and you figure out what works, and you might try some things that don't work and try some things that do work, and it'll change again and again. Like my mornings look different than they did 2 years ago, right? Like I had a toddler. Now I don't have toddlers. Like my kids are all sitting in chairs and using real forks, and like they don't want the baby forks anymore. My daughter's like, give me a metal one. And I'm like, okay, like fine. But yeah, life looks very different than it did. And so it's always evolving. But yeah, I think to your point, like friction usually points to what maybe needs to change.
And Mel, I'm so glad you brought that up. Then that was such a beautiful way of saying it, because I think so many young moms and any age, they see what's happening on Instagram and they're like, wait, that looks so beautiful. And why doesn't my morning look like that? And then the shame cycle can come. And I think we spoke to Tara Clark from Modern Mom last year. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's great.
She's fantastic. But we talked a lot about, right, the pendulum has swung. Like no one talked about it. And now everyone's talking about everything under the sun. And I hope that we head to a place with a little more alignment, meeting in the middle. That's where our two truths, no lies, like mission and why comes from, is we can be having the most amazing time and 3 minutes later we are having tantrums, and they're both going to exist and both are okay, and you have permission to feel all the feelings under the sun as it relates to both of those things. But I think it's really, really important. I would love to hear your take on how you do this in your community that you built on Instagram. How do you find that balance of it not being being Instagram and reality together?
Yeah, I mean, well, you don't see my kids typically. You might see their hand or something. So people are always like, it's so quiet. I'm like, that's because it's on mute. I don't know. Like, it's a voiceover for a reason. Like, you don't want to hear the noise in my house in the morning. There's fighting, there's crying, there's yelling about backpacks, right? Like, you don't need to see that, right? So like what you're seeing is you're seeing a minute and 30 seconds of my morning cut down, right? And so it's not the whole thing. And it's so interesting because no matter what you show, right, there will be a critique. Like oftentimes people's critique of me is like, why aren't your kids packing their backpacks? Why aren't they making their lunches? And I'm like, because I'm just trying to make my life function. And they have other things that they're responsible for. Those are just the things that I've chosen to take on at this moment in time, right? But like, no matter what you do, somebody will be doing it differently than you. And it won't be the full version, right? Like you're never going to see the full version of what it looks like in their home. And I think for me, partially, that's protecting my kids and my family. Like I just don't want to, like if my kid was crying, I just wouldn't, like I would never put that online, right? So I'm showing bits and pieces in a hope that I can share some insight into what works for us so other people can take what works for them and leave what doesn't, right? Like I think a lot of people will say like, oh, I never thought to do laundry in the morning. And I always tell people, I started that because I hated staring down. We always did it on Sundays. I'm like, why are we doing 7 loads of laundry on one day? Like, this is exhausting. It's just it feels like it never ends. And doing it once a day just feels really manageable for us. And so like to someone else, it might seem crazy to do laundry amidst the morning routine. For me, it works, right? And so I think that's the thing about social media is you kind of have to find a balance of like being okay with being slightly misunderstood in anything, but showing what you feel comfortable with and for a reason. Like just showing what makes sense for a reason. I don't show a lot of my life. I don't do a lot of that kind of content And when I do, I think like last week I showed me unboxing or like my Costco haul, bringing in all my Costco food and putting it away. And you didn't see the whole me shopping or driving. You didn't see everything. You saw a little bit. But the reason I shared it was because I think for a lot of us, so many moms were like, I know what she's talking about. Because I was like, this takes so long, right? Like I went there, I came back, I unpacked, I organized, I emptied boxes, I broke down boxes. That was like a 2-3 hour ordeal. And you saw 1 minute of it. Literally, it was 1 minute, right? But everyone understood what I was saying. Like they got what I was saying. And so I think partially that post was meant to help women like feel validated and seen in the invisible work that they do and recognized for that work, because so often it is unseen, right? So just by showing it, you get to allow others to say like, hey, you're not the only one struggling through the fact that like going to Costco takes 3 hours for some reason.
And we always say like it just helping one person on one day feel a little less alone or seen is the done goal. And how incredible is it to live in a modern society where you could do that with a stranger? You could do it with someone you know, but at the end of the day, you're making an impact in that way. And that's amazing. What is bringing you the most joy right now in terms of your space? We talk about joy tickets and like outside of, just random things. But I want to start with like, what are you working on right now for you in your space, for your community, that's bringing you the most joy?
Yeah, I launched a new podcast recently.
Yes.
The Just Us Girls podcast. Awesome. We are having so much fun. It's been really fun. One of the things I missed a lot about work, like working for a corporate company or just like work in general, like at a regular quote unquote job, was having coworkers and like people to see and talk to and to be in community with. What I do is very like isolated, I guess. I work remotely. I used to tell my husband, I'm like, I'm so tired of being in this little box alone without any human interaction all day. Being able to be in person with people who have a similar mission has been so incredibly fun for me. And I think the thing that we're trying to do is we always say we're like taking the group chat out. Like you always have these, I find in motherhood in particular, you have these like really robust group chats. You guys talked about it, like the voice notes. Like I'm talking to my friends. When I wake up, I'm not lying. I have 3 separate group chats that have already gone off. And they're all moms. And it's like, sometimes the text comes at 4 a.m. Sometimes it comes at 6 a.m., whatever, right? Like, but we are talking all day long about motherhood and like what we're dealing with and work and everything, right? And makeup products, all the things. But we very rarely get to actually be like in real community with each other, like in physical proximity to each other. And there's something I think that is so special about that. So in my work life, creating that podcast, I'm hoping to like invite people into that experience, maybe encourage them to do that more with their friends, like get in real life with your group chat friends when you can. I know it's really, really hard. And I actually shared this last year on my page, but I set a goal in 2025. One of my New Year's resolutions was to see my friends once a week, minimum. Like go see my friend. It can be a different friend, different groups, but like seeing my friends every single week. And it was so valuable. And now I see my friends like 3 times a week. Like once I started, I was like, I want to see them all day, like every day. Like I want it to be college again. Like I want to be with them all the time. So I think that's the thing we're trying to do with the podcast, which has been really, really fun. And it's also something I'm trying to do in my real life, which is like just be in real life community with people as much as I possibly can.
I love that so much. And I think that's an amazing goal. And you should be so proud of yourself for completely surpassing it, overachiever, and now being at this place that you are. Outside of that, what's a random thing, like a random joy ticket? It could be from your favorite coffee shop to like something you're watching, as Amy Poehler would say. What is bringing you joy for like just at the end of the day for yourself, TLC?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that I can give you. First and foremost, I just watched Off Campus, which was great.
Oh my God, talk about group chats. I'm sorry, but like every female group chat I have like
it's all Off Campus.
3. It's all who's watching it, all Off Campus.
Yeah, I watched Off Campus with my husband, and he liked it too.
That's 50-50. People either recommend with or without.
Yeah, we only have like an hour a day to watch TV, and we do it together, so he had to watch it. And he liked it. So we watched Off Campus. I really liked Off Campus. That brought me joy. I think like a lighthearted, fun, silly TV show can always just be like really fun. Like it can just like, I don't know. It brings like also watching that I think reminded me of college, where I was like, oh man, like just the experience of being young. I'm like, oh, I'm jealous. And I would say the other thing, I always joke with people, I'm like a true New Englander. I only drink iced coffee, and I pretty much exclusively drink coffee we make at home. And I've just been traveling for 4 days and coming home this morning and pouring my own iced coffee. I was like, oh my gosh, this is heaven. Like I go to bed. I always tell people I go to bed and I think the last thing I think about is the sip of coffee I'm going to have in the morning. Like that's what I think about. I'm like, that's what I'm excited about. I cannot wait for it.
Michelle always says the same thing. I love it. And like setting the delay on in the coffee. I drink mine hot. And I'm actually going through a very similar era right now where I was just saying this to Michelle the other day that I actually don't want to buy coffee out, not because like I want to save money, genuinely because I like the taste of my coffee better right now. I don't know why. And it's just, it brings me so much joy. I put it in my same cup every day and it's amazing. So I love that. And I can totally resonate with that joy.
I say the same thing, Paige. I'm like, literally my eyes shut at night and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait for my first sip of coffee. But I'm on the inverse. Like I love one of my joy tickets is going to a new coffee shop down the street and it is just chef's kiss. So
I love a good pastry. Like I'm happy to go to a coffee shop.
Yes.
Everybody's always like, do you want to come to a coffee shop? I'm like, yes, I am going to probably sneak in my own coffee, but I will buy food. I promise. Like I will buy something. I just want like a really flaky croissant or like a good scone. But there's something about my coffee that I'm like, I that's all I really crave is like my own coffee.
Yes. I love it. The fact that it brings you so much joy too is amazing.
It's the simple things in life.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're so grateful for your time and your insights and just being able to chat about all the things that we all need to talk more about and make more visible.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. Can you tell everyone where to find you? And we'll also include in the show notes, of course.
Yes. So you can find me on all social media at She's a Paige Turner. I also have a Substack with the same handle. I'm also on LinkedIn for people who are still in the corporate world. And I do create content there. So I have kind of written content on LinkedIn. And then my new podcast, Justice Girls Pod, with my friends Katie and Sam, airs every Thursday. So you can hear me there. And yeah, I think that's pretty much if you look up at She's a Paige Turner, you will find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun. And you all know where to find us at the MTake Podcast on Instagram and YouTube and wherever else we just like maybe might post. We don't even know. But and I think that's it. I think we can land the plane. What do you think, Michelle? Anything else?
Let's land it. That's it.
All right.
Paige, have a great day and happy birthday to all of your constituents.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Godspeed. Thank you so much. And love you and give yourself a smooch.
Bye.
Bye.